Welcome back to Division I Rejects. I say it every week. I mean it every week. We got a great episode for you today. And you'll notice we're up in the production quality over here at D1R. As we go through, we've got playoff round 1 to recap for D2, D3, and the play-ins, if you will, for the NAIA side of things. But then we've also got the previews for round 2 of the playoffs. What you'll see today is we're going to pull some highlights from those game 1 round of the playoffs things. And, you know, been wanting to do that for a while. It's obviously a lot of work to go and pull highlights and things. But if you will notice here as we break down, especially D2 and D3 wise, we're going to have a lot of video highlights for you guys to check out if you're watching us on YouTube. If not, don't worry. The product on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen, will not suffer at all. Still going to be some great entertainment for your eardrums there. That sounded better in the head than coming out of the mouth. But I've got a great guest joining me tonight. That's Zac Boyes, the quarterback over at SUNY Cortland. They are heading into a round 2 matchup against Grove City that I think a lot of people are really excited about. So pumped to talk to Zac here in a little bit. Obviously, we'll have Jimmy Martin join me to break down the D3 landscape around in the playoff picture. And then Matthew Schwarzler at the end of the episode to come in and spit some knowledge about the NAIA side of things. Otherwise, today, I do have some D2 talking points besides the usual recap and of the sorts. We've got some Harlon Hill competition. I think there's 2 front runners right now. We're going to break down a little bit later on for the most prestigious award at the Division II football level. We'll break down a little bit of their stats, do a little watching, and maybe I'll leave the conversation and the decision up to you, but I'm thinking I know who the top dog is going to be at the D2 level. Otherwise, we do have a team leaving the MIAA as far as football is concerned, so stick around for that. One of the better conferences on the Division II side of things. So kind of some big news over there. They're going to go and be an independent. So stick around to find out who that is. As always, you can watch the episode on YouTube if you are going to be in for a treat today. Otherwise, you can listen pretty much anywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Follow us on the socials. Put out a lot of great content this last weekend covering all the playoff games from a bunch of different levels, And if you are watching on YouTube, remember, bottom of the screen, timestamps, the chapters. I think I keep calling them timestamps, but the video chapters. You can go to any part of the video you want to, fast forward, go back, or just stick around and listen to all of it. Be blessed for, I don't know, an hour and a half. This might be a long episode. We got a lot of good shit today. But before we do any of that, let's get over to our guest conversation for the day, the quarterback, Zac Boyes. Joining the show tonight, this man is under center for a D3 squad that is red hot heading into the second round of the playoffs. He's just been named the Offensive Player of the Year in the Empire 8, quarterback for the Cortland Red Dragons, Zac Boyes. What's up, dude? How are you?
I'm cool, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Really
of course.
excited.
Congrats on the award. That's big time.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. It was a goal I had at the beginning of the season, so it's cool to get, the individual awards and all that stuff. So, but cool stuff.
Oh yeah. Kind of a gimme, it felt like. I mean, for outsider, that felt like a little bit of a gimme. But the year you're having has been a fun one to watch from afar. Obviously, can't say I've tuned into every single snap that you've played over there under center. But this last week, got a chance to sit down and watch what you guys had going on. Speaking of what you got going on, what's on the back wall over there? I see the helmet up on the plaque.
Oh, that's something I got from last year, and then I got my Josh Allen jersey up there.
Okay,
so, gotta rep my boy. But,
surrounded by greatness. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're finally figuring it out over there in Buffalo, it seems like. But you guys right now seem to be putting all the pieces together. Had the one blemish on the record in the regular season, man, but now you guys are rolling. And not only that, you get it on the road. I was just telling you before we started, the fact that you had to go on the road for that round 1 game and pull out a huge victory, you guys aren't strangers to that. I want to talk a little bit before we get to the playoffs about that Cortland Jug game, man. Going over to Butterfield, picking up that huge win, that's got to be just an emotional roller coaster and obviously a really fun trip.
Oh yeah. The Cortland Jug is it's special for a reason. It's one of the most important games in D3 and one of the games that everybody looks forward to. That experience is something you'll remember for a lifetime. Going over there and being in that environment. We were joking last week when we were kind of getting heckled walking down from the stadium. It was nothing compared to the walk at Butterfield. But that's why you come to Cortland. It was really cool to be a part of that, and especially to play at their place. That's something that I'll remember for a long time, and it was definitely a lot of fun to pull out a W.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I was in MetLife for, I'm trying to remember which Cortland, but You know the one. I was in MetLife for that one. I was actually out there on a visit. So seeing that environment firsthand, the way that those two fan bases show up and support and also get a little chippy, obviously, you know, when you have a rivalry of that stature. I wanted to ask what makes it so special outside of obviously the venues that this series has seen, the likes of MetLife and Yankee Stadium and those kind of things. What is it about the rivalry that does make it one of the best in Division III football?
I think it's just two programs that kind of, we're 30 minutes away from each other. So, and a lot of people from the downstate area come up and a lot of people from the upstate area, right? It's right in central New York, so it's kind of like the halfway point. So there's a lot of people that, I'm from Buffalo, so there's a lot of people back
Mhm.
home where, you wear a Cortland hoodie around, they'll be like, hey, good luck this year, stuff like that. And then, there might be somebody that wearing an IC hoodie and I give them a look or two. But it's really just kind of cool how many people kind of care about it in New York State and how many people care about each program and being with the success that both programs have had, we've been kind of on the upcoming on the national level. So we've been
Yeah.
just kind of attracting more eyes, and I think it's really cool to see how many people are alumni or have friends that either went to a Cortica Jug game or went to school at one of the places, and just to see how much they really care. It's a great opportunity to be a part of.
Yeah, and both the teams are still around. Like they're both making still plays,
Oh
obviously in
yeah.
this year's bracket, and that's something that's been a staple the last couple of years. You guys are pretty top level premier programs, and really the reason I bring it up is because I want to talk about the benefit that it brings you guys. The fact that you talked about it, man, walking into Butterfield and having to deal with that pressure, that stage, that kind of atmosphere. Now going into the playoffs, you kind of have that under your belt. And as someone who, not everyone on that roster that you have over there has been in those kind of big time games, but what does that do, getting that experience on that kind of more national stage do for a team like this that's looking to make a pretty deep run here?
Yeah, it's huge, and it's also because we're playing a very good team.
Hmm.
It's because I respect that program top to bottom. Um, they're a hell of a team. They give you problems, man, and they're physical, they're fast. Um, so it's tough going against them, and it's kind of get you ready for the playoff game. We always say it's a 98. It's kind of like it's not just another game, that game.
Mm.
So it allows you to prepare for the pressure moments. You're playing in front of probably the biggest crowd that you'll play all year, right? So it's good to kind of get that under your belt and see, feel the emotions of the game, feel how, for it's third down when we were there, they were going nuts, and then when it was a third down for them, it was basically you could hear a pin drop before besides our sideline, and our fans were going nuts. Um, so it's just really cool to kind of get that under your belt and just see that deal with the pressure environments and get to play another quality opponent. And that's something that we kind of emphasized this year was playing some really good teams. So then we're used to the pressure that comes with that, and how you got to play and how you got to prepare each week. So coach has done a great job of that, and it's been a fun job dealing with it.
Yeah, you touched on that, man. That's something that stuck out to me. All three of the games that you guys played this year, regular season, all playoff teams, you open up with Del Val, and you have Susquehanna, and then you have Ithaca, obviously, towards the end of the year. Three non-conference games against three playoff teams, and you guys fare pretty well in those contests, obviously. But with that being said, who wins in a fight, a Red Dragon or a Seagull?
Yeah, Red Dragon's gonna get that done every time, man. So
That's
it's
tough.
we take a lot of pride in being the Red Dragons and playing the way we play. So
Good answer. Good answer. Yeah, don't let me trip you up, dude. But let's talk about the Endicott game a little bit. Getting it done on the
yeah,
road, right? Something you guys are obviously no stranger to, and a game that, for as tight as it seemed, you guys never trailed in the whole
right.
contest. You guys can maintain a lead, whether it was a 1 point or a 10 point or whatever it was. I'm sure at times it didn't feel like it was probably that comfortable for you guys, huh?
No, no, it was a stressful game, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Endicott's a very, very good team. Um, they have they have a couple players that Hector Johnson, number 7 for them, is a beast. He was a game wrecker, man.
Oh
He
yeah.
he was flying around. He was making a ton of plays, and they had someone who hasn't played all year, number 10. I'm blanking on his name, but he deserves all the respect in the world too because he came in. He wasn't on any of the film that we watched, at least the last 3 weeks. And he was flying around and make plays. So they did some things that we weren't kind of expecting, and did some. They had a good plan, and we didn't really execute that well in the red zone. And just kind of overall as an offense, like we've been all year. So we had to rely on our defense, and they answered the call, man. They played outstanding. They forced 3 turnovers. They got us the ball, which allowed us to kind of have the ball for a good portion of the game. And we just didn't. When it came down to it, we had didn't execute when we needed to in the red zone and hurt ourselves a little bit too much in that game. So, it's good to learn from that in a win rather
Yeah.
than sitting here, with our season over.
Yeah.
So it was great to, be challenged and face some adversity, especially on offense where, we've been kind of rolling all year. So it was good to see like, hey, you know, things are going well, how we're going to respond. So it's good that we can learn from that, and huge shout out to our defense, man, because they really picked us up and gave allowed us to get a W.
Yeah, that's big. And, credit to the defense all you want. You guys are still efficient with the rock. And I think more importantly, you're not turning it over, right? Because that's where you're going to screw over your defense. You're going to put them, whether you're giving them a short field or just keeping them on the field and having them gas the entire duration of the game. You guys did a good job of that. And I think it helps when you can retain the ball. You got a dude that's getting it done in the backfield. Jaden had a day, 26 carries, 157 and a tud. That makes your life a lot easier. The defense loves it because you guys are eating clock when you can drive down the field a bit. Talk about that and how that opened it up, at least, especially when you are not getting the usual numbers you have through the air.
Right. We kind of got to take what the defense gives us. That's our motto on defense. We want to stay poised and just take what they give us. And Jaden is a stud, man. He's been playing some unbelievable ball all year long, really. He's been very consistent with how he's been playing. He runs hard. He's special when the ball gets in his hands. He can take it to the house whenever he wants to. But something that goes underlooked, like he had 26 carries and he carried the ball very well, but he also blocked and made some huge plays in
Okay.
pass pro, and also when I was toting the rock. So he's been playing great all year. He hasn't been getting all the shine that he got the year before.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really care about that now. He's more
Good.
mature. And we go as ego, as we say. And when he's got the hot hand and he's getting 4 or 5 a pop, it's hard for us to stop. And like you said, it just keeps us on schedule. It keeps our drives going. Those 3-yard runs that really should be zero are
Yeah.
huge. So just he's been outstanding, and it's been beneficial for our offense to stay balanced.
Yeah, a couple signs of a good back, man. Obviously, like you said, making something out of nothing is huge for guys like that, drive, sustaining stuff. But when as an OC on the sideline, you got your little call sheet in front of you, and you're like, you can point at each of these plays. You're like, yeah, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5. Like, give me these yards. Like, you could close your eyes and make the call. Like, that's the kind of, maybe I'm exaggerating, embellishing a little bit, but you know what I mean? Like, when you have that kind of reliability from a back and an offensive line is obviously huge. But another big name of that offense, JJ, on the outside, he's got a little bit of a quiet day. For him, we've seen what he's been able to do and just tear open games with some of the plays that he's able to make on the outside. Much to a credit of yourself, too, as well. But talk about how I think the big takeaway from that is even when maybe he doesn't have the stellar day and puts up this crazy stat line, he's still a contributor, obviously. And 2, you guys are able to work around it. You've got other dudes that are making big plays outside as well.
Right. And we turn the film on, JJ gets a lot of attention, right?
Yep.
Like he was getting doubled all day long. There's everybody kind of knows where 4 is on all times.
And they should, by the way. They absolutely should.
Absolutely. They absolutely should. He's a stud, man. He works really hard. He's a special player, that's for sure. And teams know that. So, and he knows the attention that he gets. So he's not, over on the sideline throwing his hands up like, hey, give me the ball, nothing like that. He knows what's going on.
Love it.
That's the best part about him. He wants to win just as much as anybody else. And whether if he's got to go and he's got 300 yards before, if that's his job on the day, then that's what he's got to do. But, if sometimes he's just got to block for Jaden or take stuff underneath and just be patient, that's kind of his role. So he knows week by week it could vary. And teams know that too. So it's kind of just all about how they play him and what they want to do with him. But he's been great all year with just kind of staying in the moment and being ready to make the big play when it's there.
Hey, he's fun to watch. And
yeah,
you guys are fun to watch. You guys are fun to watch too. I'm sure you probably thought the same thing after lofting up a couple to him, man, and just seeing him sprint down the field. I'm thinking of that stat line. I think he had one of our Player of the Week awards earlier on. It was like 5 for 250. And you're like, some sports information director made a typo. And you check, and you're like, no, they did not. 5 for 250 is like Jerry Ross. I don't even know, like, who can put up that kind of stat line on, but he's one of one. He's one of those guys, and you guys got a few of them over there. But let's talk about this week. Got Grove City coming to town finally. Don't have to go on the road. Get to play in front of the home fans. That's got to be an exciting factor in itself, huh?
Absolutely. We love playing at home. My grandparents get to come. They live in Ithaca.
Big time.
So they were disappointed last week when we weren't home. That's for sure. My grandma was pretty upset, but they get to watch the game on the TV. But it's something that they get to come watch me play. It's awesome that you get your family down there. It's Thanksgiving weekend, so there's not going to be a ton of students here, right? So
Yep.
it's cool that we'll be able to get all of our family there. It's just going to be, it's just going to be in us versus them, and they're an outstanding team, man. I'll tell you that they're very, very physical. They do a lot of things that are going to give us some problems in the offensive side of the ball. I haven't watched their offensive ton. I'm just kind of worried about doing my job.
Oh, yeah.
But we're gonna have to bring it on every play, man. They're tough, they're physical, they're fast. And there's 16 teams left, right? Like there's only 16 teams practicing in D3 football, so everybody's good, right?
Exactly.
And,
you hit it right on the head, dude. Like there's no, I think the first round, obviously you have some of these higher seeds that like, the game picks last week, we don't really do game picks on here, but if we did, like, kind of would have been pretty easy. There's a couple things that shake up here and there, right? Like that Grove City win this last week definitely was one that surprised a lot of people. That win over Susquehanna, which, by the way, the only team you guys lost to in the regular season. So I know you don't read too much into the who beat who, or else we could have Grove City probably beating Alabama with some type of equation. But you definitely look at that as some kind of measuring stick. Like, these guys are obviously legit. The physicality you talked about, their running game the last two games has been great, but it does feel like you guys have had quite the Cinderella killer matchups these first couple of weeks. Endicott kind of felt, I wouldn't go as far as to say like America's team, but they kind of came out of nowhere, had the statement win over Hardin Simmons, and it felt like a very feel-good story. We had one of the guys on the show, loved it. You guys went over there and just squashed their hearts. So that was, yeah.
Yeah, we just kind of had to go in there and do our thing, and we knew that was going to be, we knew they weren't going to go down without a fight.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. No, you're doing your job. I get to poke fun at it. But now you have Grove City coming in. Their first playoff win in program history last week. I guess we'll see if the shoe fits, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. It's if we play our game, I know I'm confident in our guys. But it just goes to show like it's every given week.
Yeah.
We gotta play our best, our absolute best, in order to get the job done. And like you said, this is their first year in the playoffs, so they're very hungry.
Mm-hmm.
In rightfully so, right? Like they got kind of their best team in school history, and they want to keep the show going. And if we don't bring it there, they will. So I'm excited for our guys for the challenge. It's gonna be a dogfight. And I'm excited for our guys to kind of see what we're made of.
Little bit of a better mascot battle too. We got a dragon and a Wolverine this time as opposed to a seagull.
Right.
So if that's any indication, it's gonna be a fun one, dude. But I appreciate it. It's all the random shit I got for you. But thank you, Zach. I'm excited to tune in this Saturday, brother, and watch you guys, and hopefully continue to see you explode offensively and just all three phases. You guys have done a good job of that. So appreciate you, man. Have a good rest of your night.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for all you do. Like I said earlier, it's really cool. This is the platform you guys got going on. So we appreciate it.
That means the world, brother. All right, sweet. I'll see you, man.
All right, man.
I appreciate Zach coming on. We're going to move over to the D2 side of things first, as we usually do. We're going to talk about some Harlan Hill favorites, at least for me right now. I don't believe any official list has been released yet, but there's two guys for me that stand out, head and shoulders above everyone else. And this guy, who we had the pleasure of having on the show just a little while back, playing for the University of Central Missouri, that being Zach Zabrowski, he's been dropping balls like this into buckets the entire year. Look at that placement. I mean, that's insane. That is a very high caliber throw. The D1 bounce back from, I believe, Southern Illinois. The dude has been tearing up the Division II scene. Didn't even know he was going to be a starter week one. The starter goes down. He comes in, balls the hell out for the Mules over there. And this guy has just been tearing up defense across the country ever since. You look at his season stats right now for this guy, and I think we're going to open some eyes here when we take a look at these numbers. Right now, he has thrown the ball 558 times, by the way, which is insane. His percentage, though, remains very high. He's completed 383 of those. So his percentage in any given game is usually between 60 and 75%. Like, he is throwing at a very efficient clip. He's thrown currently for 4,732 yards with 56 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. So you're throwing the ball 558 times. You've only thrown it to a dude in a different color jersey 5. That's for the people who maybe are a little bit slower at home. That's incredible. I mean, this guy is insane. Now, don't get me wrong. He's got a fantastic offense around him, but obviously he is the driving point. He is, as far as this offense goes. They've got all the pieces it feels like they need to win over there. Fast, fun, free, physical, a lot of the words they like to use to describe that offense. When I was talking about some of the best uniform combos, by the way, these black kits, these are insane. These look really good, the red text and everything. But yeah, so shout out to Zach. He has been a dog this year, and him and that Central Missouri team have been a very fun team to talk about and follow. We'll talk about more of them in Super Region 3 in a little bit when we go through the D2 playoff side of things. The other guy, and I think the guy who was probably the obvious favorite maybe heading into this season, that being John Matocha from Colorado School of Mines. He won it last year, obviously going to be a name that's going to be talked about for this award in the following year. You look at this dude, you want to talk about dropping the ball in a bucket.
Wide open down the
that
right
ball,
side, completed.
And I'll turn the audio off if you don't hear the announcer, but that ball right there, they ended up going out to beat this team, I think, like 80-something to nothing. I don't know why dude was even in the game. But he has been playing incredible this year. The Mines team, highly regarded as the best team in Division II football right now. Their front seven on defense has been playing very well. But again, this team goes as far as John Matocha goes. He's got some dogs on the outside, guys like McLeod, who have been playmakers for him for quite some time now over there in Mines. They've made a lot of news for their crazy haircuts and different way of doing things. Obviously, engineering school, you're going to get a couple different cats over there playing ball. But at the end of the day, like, that team knows how to play football games and how to win the hell out of football games. They've played one of the toughest strength of schedules throughout the entire year in Division II. But when you look at his stats, and the award isn't only stats, but it's stats are obviously a big part of what this award is. He's 238 for 345, so not nearly the same number of attempts as Zabrowski, but still has thrown for over 3,000 yards. He's got 36 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So again, you're talking about a guy who's usually throwing somewhere between 65 to 80% completion percentage. Like, these are insane numbers from both these guys. Really could be a toss-up. Obviously, Zabrowski has a little bit more breadth on his resume because he has thrown the ball so many more times. That air raid offense in Central Missouri is outstanding. Matocha, though, in a lot of his games has come out right at halftime and things of that nature. So we're not even really getting to see a lot of what he's capable of doing, because look at these last two games against New Mexico Highlands and Fort Lewis. He only had 19 and 17 attempts respectively, and between those two games, he only had 6 incompletions. Like, the dude is flat out balling, almost had 300 yards still in both those games, and he's not even really being utilized. So right now, man, it feels like those two are the front runners for the Harlan Hill Award. It'll be very interesting to see how that shakes out. Otherwise, different conference here. Not for Zach Zabrowski, but the MIAA. We've got a team leaving the MIAA, and this was kind of the release that was put out by the conference via Twitter, although it's not going to show up now. There we are. This was dropped just earlier today, I do believe. Yes, the 20th as I'm recording this. It says, the MIAA has approved Northeastern State University's request to play as an NCAA Division II independent institution in the sport of football. So, for those of you who don't know what that means, a team like Lincoln is in a very similar situation right now, playing as the independent. And when you go break this down, read between the lines, if you will, this is the Mid-America Intercollegiate Athletic Association, and the request actually came from Northeastern State. So I don't want this to be confused and say they're being kicked out of the conference for some reason. They've actually come to the conference, and they're going to this is the quote, temporarily pause its MIAA football membership to compete as an independent. So last week they filed the request, and Northeastern State will remain committed to the MIAA membership in the 9 remaining Division II teams the university sponsors. So I also want to focus, this is a very specific football move. This is not a whole entire change standpoint for their athletic department. This is specifically football. It says here in the release from the MIAA that the decision and approval give NSU, Northeastern State University, a greater chance to gain success and rebuild its football program to MIAA standards. So now you read that line and you're like, were they pressured into making this decision, or is this really just coming from them? It also says it allows the MIAA football programs to strengthen their schedules to better position themselves for postseason play. So now you talk about strength of schedule being one of these deciding factors. GLIAC schools, RMAC schools, Gulf South schools have certainly taken advantage of that. MIAA says we want in on this action. We want to get more teams into the playoff. Pittsburgh State and UCM are not enough. So it says here, while the 2024 MIAA schedule has already been released last spring, NSU will play their 2024 football season as a non-conference opponent for all MIAA schools. But all of the playing institutions will have the option to find other non-conference opponents the week they're scheduled to play the Riverhawks next fall. So if you're a team like Pitt State or Central Missouri or maybe Northwest or Emporia, like some of those top caliber teams, and you're looking to have these more statement wins on your record, you can now go in and add one of these teams. Maybe it's from the GLIAC, maybe from the Northern Sun, maybe from the RMAC or the Gulf South, right? And this opens up so many fun possibilities for these inter-conference matchups. Very excited to see what that happens. The MIAA also said they will soon approve schedules for the 2025 and 26 seasons that will not include NSU at all. So teams will be on their own to go out and find and schedule some of those out-of-conference games. But following the 2025 season, so in 2 additional years from now, NSU and the MIAA CEO Council will reassess the state of NSU's football program to determine its status for the 2027 and 28 football seasons. So the earliest this team can be back in the conference is 2027, which is kind of crazy. And you might think, excuse me, why is this happening? Why do they feel like they need to, they must be pretty bad, right? Let me give you the breakdown. And coming from a team up here in Northern Michigan that just went 0-11, trust me, I understand it's a struggling team more than you know. But this squad, man, we'll go down the last 6 seasons of play right here, starting with 2023. 1-10, 1-10, 2-9, 0-11, 0-11, 1-10. This is not 1, 2, 3, even 4 bad years of struggling football. Honestly, I stopped at 2017 because there's no point in continuing to go. You're looking at least 6 years of football that has just not even been remotely competitive. And it's sad because, obviously you don't want to have teams in this position. It just sucks. And again, being a part of a program up here that has struggled very much this year, it drains the energy from all these guys. It can ruin the love of football for a lot of players and coaches respectively, and you get to see a lot of the worst of people when you're losing all these games. It's just tough to come out of that spot, especially in a day and age of the transfer portal where all these guys can get out of, all the players that, have a chance to go play somewhere else can get out of there and go find somewhere else that's, going to be competing in a lot of these same games. So it's hard to build a program up when you're in the depths of some kind of season like this. This independency for them and their program definitely seems to be in the best interest for both parties. So I am happy to see that from Northeastern State, seeing a little bit of, what's the word? Self-reflection and understanding that. But I do want to know from you guys, though, what non-conference matchups would be exciting next year? I know the NSIC stands out for me. Imagine getting a Pittsburgh State versus Augustana, or a Northwest Missouri State versus Bemidji State or Mankato, those kind of games. Because with Northern Sun being in a very similar situation, Upper Iowa leaving in favor of the GLVC, now we have a lot of these openings, and I think the parity in Division II college football right now is at an all-time high. I think it's a great time to be a fan of D2 football. With that being said, let's take a look at the bracket. The bracket remaining for D2 football, the Sweet 16, the only squads that are left in the national dance. Here they are, man. If you follow us on the socials, you saw this one already. But these are the standings after week 1 of the playoffs. And I've got just kind of some notes, some cliff notes to go through here for each of the super regions. And I guess my biggest overall note, if you look at this this graphic here, it was really business as usual in the first round for Division II, unless you were Super Region 4. Central Washington, Bemidji State pulling off 2 pretty big upsets we'll get to later. But let's start numerically. Super Region number 1, Kutztown. Not only a strong defensive team, we've seen that. Obviously, the performance against Slippery Rock in the PSAC championship, they were dialed in. But this team is dominant, and I think all 3 phases of the game. If you follow us on the socials, once again, you saw some of what this team was able to do. This team is really performing at a very high level. And then you talk about their opponent in Virginia Union in the first round. It becomes a question for me, does the CIAA just not stack up to conferences like the PSAC? I think there's a little bit of that there. I don't believe the conference is nearly as deep as the PSAC is. But I do believe at the end of the day, Kutztown is just that good. So I don't think it really necessarily is a bad reflection of the conference. I think Kutztown is just a very quality football team, and I don't think people maybe have given them the credit, maybe myself included, maybe we haven't given them the credit that they deserve. You look at some of these highlights. These are all from the first quarter against Virginia Union. They came out swinging, the Bears did. You look here, they get things started with a little bit of a trickery piece here, the reverse. That got things going for them. They already had a score on the board. That gets them even to a further lead. And then not only a few minutes later, I do believe in the first quarter still, closing the first, Virginia Union looking to punt. That one gets swatted away. They pick it up in the end zone, and they're going to score that one to extend their lead to 21. And this is where things really started to get out of hand for Virginia Union. I think they put the game away at this point. Those two plays felt like huge momentum shifts for that Kutztown Bears offense and special teams, respectively. But, like I said, I think this team deserves a lot of credit. They've got a really big-time match against Charleston this week, and we'll see kind of what happens there. Offensively, Judd Novak did a great job. Daryl Davis McNeil, had a great day on the ground. But nothing too crazy. I think they were just very efficient. Their defense obviously stepped up big time. And there was a quote I saw. This is going to be a little more controversial side of things. The quote I saw said, quote, Kutztown University showed the difference in facilities of HBCU teams versus well-funded teams. Due to this, Virginia Union was overpowered. I don't like that. I really don't like that. Yes, I understand Kutztown, a pretty rich history over there football-wise. They do have some very nice facilities. Virginia Union, and this is not from a Virginia Union rep or whatever. This is just from some media outlet online. But if you're going to look at this game and tell me that the difference was that Kutztown had nicer facilities, that's why they got dog-walked, you can't say, you just can't say that. That's not a fallback card. I don't understand playing that card of the facilities are the matter of the difference here. Like, Kutztown dominated this game. There wasn't any metric they did not dominate. Virginia Union was only giving up 37 rushing yards per game. They had the number one rushing defense in the nation. Kutztown goes in there and ran for over 200. I don't care what facility, what turf, what grass you're running on. If you get ran for 200, you're not having a great shot of winning the game. It's a 38-14 game, and let's be honest, it was 35-7. Like, this game, it was 28-0. Like, this game could have gotten very much worse. I don't know. I thought that was a cop-out. I forget who said it, or maybe I'm just saving them on here, but I thought that was a cop-out. I don't think that's necessarily the case at all. I think this Kutztown team just deserves a little bit more respect. They're playing at a great clip right now. Otherwise, Slippery Rock, still very much the team to beat, I think. Right? I think we'll see. Obviously, they have the matchup coming up against one-seeded Tiffin in this next round, but when you look at their first-round matchup, and I'm pulling up the video here shortly, don't worry, against East Stroudsburg, who has every right to be considered one of those top playoff squads. Coming out of the PSAC, they boasted a pretty solid record. But when you see what Slippery Rock, especially offensively, was able to do against this Warrior squad from ESU, you start to think that Slippery Rock is very much the team to beat in Super Region number 1. That's not a shot to Tiffin. I do believe, I think I said on past episodes, that if Slippery Rock does not lose, how about that little trickery there on the fake punt, by the way, I freaking love that to close out the first quarter. Oh, that's so sick. And he goes in for the score. But if Slippery Rock does not lose in that PSAC championship game to a Kutztown team that we're giving all the flowers in the world to right now, they are very much the one seed in this region. So I think you have to keep that in perspective. And while Tiffin might be the favorite and on the spread or any kind of metrics this week, I think this Slippery Rock team going on the road is poised to have a major upset against the Dragons. Again, all the credit in the world to Tiffin. They've got some very quality wins in the year, and they're perfect. They have not lost, and they've earned that one seed. So I don't want to take anything away from them. That man right there, Kyle Sheets, been a dog all year for Slippery Rock. They got a lot of big-time, more high marquee players. He's been one of them. He's put up some insane stats throughout the entire year. But this game, very competitive. You can see it here in the first half. Slippery Rock would end up kind of running away with it. I shouldn't say maybe running away with it, but winning in a pretty deciding fashion. 45-14. Yeah, they ran away with it. I'll take that back. They ran away with this thing. For considering how close this game was early on, credit to Slippery Rock, right? And we talk about this with Pitt State later on. This feels like a team that, you're not going to let a team like East Stroudsburg stick around. When you have the opportunity to, put them in the dirt, put them away. And this Slippery Rock team did a very good job of doing just that. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged about if you are a Rock fan. They're playing very good football right now. Finally, Charleston, they survive a shootout with New Haven. Does not bode well for Kutztown there. Their round 2 poll, their matchup that they have. You look at this game. Charleston, the Golden Eagles, they pull out a 52-44 victory. And the biggest number for me, New Haven had not scored 44 all season long until Saturday. And there are alarm bells going off in my head. You're going up against Kutztown, which has the potential to be one of the best, probably one of the best defenses in the country, definitely one of the better defenses in Super Region number 1. And you just let up 44 points to a team that had not scored that much until this weekend. playing in the NE10, by the way. They don't play a lot of great teams in that conference, and you just let up a season high for them. Charleston's offense, a lot of great things to talk about. Siobhan Wright in the backfield. There's some really good things going on in their run game. Their defense needs to definitely be locked in for this Saturday matchup. I'm pretty scared for them, but that's why you have to suit it up. You still have to suit it up and play ball. Super Region 2, Lenore-Rhyne back to being dangerous. It feels like that loss to Wingate, potentially a one-off for the Bears, who are playing, once again, at a very good clip here. And again, early success from the Bears over Shepherd University. We'll take a look at it right there. They get things started here, and I'll give it a quick, just replay, but quarterback keeper there, get things going at Lenore-Rhyne. That game kind of environment looked really great. Lenore-Rhyne's offense was not afraid to take shots either on the day. You're going to see it right here with this drop back. Absolute missile down the middle of the field. Shepherd felt like they played a lot of middle field open. Just absolute problems. These guys on the outside, guys like Diari Rogers and some of the other skill players for the Bears, when you hear the announcers say, "To the land of milk and honey" about 4 times in the first half, you know you're in trouble. But this Lenore-Rhyne team playing very well right now. And if you look at some of the stats from this one, this was our tweet. Make sure to follow us on the socials to get some of these updates. They finished the game 63-17, which is outrageous. And some big-time numbers. Sean White for Lenore-Rhyne, 398 yards passing and 5 tuds in the day is ridiculous. Songa Yates with 141 yards through the air receiving, as well as Diari Rogers, like I just talked about, who had 91 and 2 touchdowns of his own. This offense is going to be very, very difficult to stop. Their next round matchup will obviously be an interesting one. But right now, Lenore-Rhyne in this region is certainly a team to talk about. And if you look at actually that, I'm blanking on their next round matchup. Hold on. They will have Benedict, who is the 1 seed. That's correct. So Benedict coming off a bye week. Benedict has one of the better defenses in the country going against one of the better offenses in the country. So the classic case of the unstoppable versus the immovable, something along those lines. I'm kind of forgetting the expression off the top of my head here. But otherwise, in Super Region 2, Delta State dominant over the Argos. And for me, I think the biggest takeaway from this game for Delta State is they shut the hell out of John Giles. This guy, we have seen him do so much through the air for this West Florida offense. I mean, it won't let me pull up his stats here on the season for whatever reason, but only 5 catches for him, 46 yards, and you might think, oh, that's a decent game. This dude has been exploding for 100 to 200 yards per game almost at every single stretch throughout the year. Their one loss inside of Gulf South played, who I believe it was West Bell, Alabama for West Florida. He still had over 100 yards and a TOD on the day. So the fact that the Delta State secondary stepped up, I think, is huge for them. Patrick Shegog, 19 for 25, 318, and 6 touchdowns to no interceptions. Somebody say MVP? That man is balling. Shegog is balling over there for the Statesman. A little bit of a drink break for me. But this Delta State team, I mean, there's a ton to be encouraged about. Like, they played a very great brand of football. And when you look at some of these stats, too, like, they're still rushing the ball. They had 130 yards in the day as a team. You know, very efficient through the air. Like we talked about, the total offense was fantastic. And you look at just kind of the control of the game. I think very even time possession, but the defense for Delta State stepping up. They held West Florida 4 of 13 on 3rd down and 0 for 2 on 4th. So timely plays defensively for the Statesmen, kind of the sticking point of this one for me. And Valdosta, on the other side of things, they might be all the way back. Their offense is scary. Sammy Edwards, another guy who's getting it done through the air for the Blazers. Talk about an offensive shootout, 62-41 over Limestone, and he finished with 344 yards and 6 touchdowns. A lot of stuff going on for the Blazers, Coach Tremaine Jackson over there and company. Feels like after a 1-year hiatus from the playoffs, they might be all the way back to be able to poise to make a run here. A lot of playoff experience down there in Titletown, Georgia, as he likes to call it. But they run into Delta State this next week. And, there's obviously some history there with splitting the Gulf South. They both shared a what's the word? They clinched a share. There it is. Share to clinch. They clinched a share of the Gulf South championship, respectively, which is interesting because Delta State owns the head-to-head. They beat Valdosta back in October, 49-25. at Valdosta, by the way, which is a huge win. So we'll see what can happen this next week. We've seen a lot of second-time matchups in the playoffs go a lot differently than their first-time counterparts. This one in Super Region 3, though, went very much the same way. How about a transition right there? GVSU, they do it again. Still should not have been a first-round game, but man, if you were watching D2 football this weekend and you did not watch this Grand Valley versus Ferris State game, I have a couple very good questions for you, and I'd be very curious to hear what you were doing other than that, because when we look at this game and watching some of these highlights here as I pull them up, this seems like a very big play right here. Cardamone comes in and forces the fumble. That's recovered by Christian McCarroll. And then just a few plays later, you'll see Grand Valley's first score of the day here as Peterson hands it off to Tariq Reed, goes with the left side. He's got a couple jump cuts and works his way into the end zone. Very complimentary football from the Lakers to get things started, obviously in front of a packed home house at Lubber Stadium. And they just continued to add on. It felt like this game might slip away for Grand Valley at certain points. The pass rush here, guys like Niles King who get into the backfield, the West Bloomfield product. This team was rolling. This Grand Valley defense was firing on all cylinders. You saw the GLIAC first team, all defensive team come out. It was basically the whole Lakers defense, at least that front seven, which was insane. Ferris State, though, credit to them. They find a way to claw back into this one. Down by a couple scores. They're driving with only a minute 50 left. They lose the ball, and you think, okay, a minute 50 left. This game's over. Grand Valley just has to, run it out, whatever. Fumble, touchdown, get the onside kick. This game literally came down to the last second, but was closed out on a sack by Grand Valley. And like I kind of talked about, the whole defense from Grand Valley, just scary. The front seven, I think, is going to match up especially well against Pitt State, who plays a very physical brand of football in the trenches. But again, if you're a Laker fan, there is a lot to be proud about right here from this GVSU defense especially. And a credit to the offense. Like, they got things going as well, but I think right now, for me, it's the defense that deserves a lot of the praise. Ferris State's defense also locked in. Both defensive coordinators were doing freaking numbers on Saturday. They were dialed in, ready for that matchup. But, we'll see. We'll see how it fares for the Lakers moving forward, coming out of what I believe is the toughest super region out of the four. And that brings me to Central Missouri, who is more than just an explosive offense. I think that's kind of what we talked about earlier with Zach Zabrowski, right? This team, 56-14 over a really solid Henderson State squad coming out of the GAC at home. And a lot to be really excited about if you're a Mules fan. But with that being said, the biggest test of the year versus Harding coming up off a bye week. Two really quality GAC opponents for Central Missouri here in the first couple rounds. But Pitt State, very much still that team. That's what it says in my notes right here. The Gorillas against University of Indianapolis, who only had one loss on the year. They handle them 35-14. And let me tell you, it wasn't even that close. It was 35-7 in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, and UIndy gets a late score to make it look a little bit more interesting. And I think that's good growth from a Pittsburgh State team that we saw in the early half of the year. Let these kind of teams stick around, very much like Slippery Rock. They let these teams stick around, and then it became a little more competitive than maybe it should have been. This Pittsburgh State team is putting teams away right now, and that's very encouraging if you're Gus the Gorilla and company over there. But my biggest takeaway and I guess note for them heading into round number 2, can you do it on the road? You're not in the jungle anymore. They probably have one of the best home field advantages in the country. That stadium and that fan base just rallies around that team, that community does. But can they do it on the road? Can they do it in Lubber Stadium? We will find out, obviously, Kobe. Otherwise, let's go down Super Region number 4. Probably the biggest, I don't know if I'd say the biggest, one of the best performances from the weekend did not come from an individual player. In fact, it came from one side of the ball, that being Bemidji State's defense. The number 15 Beavers, they go down to number 10 UTPB. Imagine going from Minnesota all the way down to Texas and then balling out. Here's Kenny Hershner on the first drive for UTB being the Falcons. He dives, hits the pylon, touchdown. Oh, shit. Penalty, calls it back. Now they're trying to get something to happen. Throw it to the end zone. This is one of Bemidji State's first big plays of the day. Interception in the end zone for the Beavers. They were rolling. The defense played incredibly well for Bemidji State. They hold what has been probably one of the better offenses in Division II to only 3 points on the day on their home field. And freaking massive, nasty hit right there. That was awesome. Let me not cruise over that. But this Bemidji State team, although their offense certainly stuttered on the road, This is why people talk about, man, like defense travels, run game travels. This is a 10-3 gritty ass game, type of game that all these NSIC teams honestly are very used to. This is nothing new for Bemidji State. Their margin of victory has not been incredibly large, and they play some, oh my gosh, that was dirty. But they play some really quality teams through the regular season as well. There's the only points from the Falcons on the day. And not take anything away from the Falcons, they still put together a very quality season. Shout out to Coach McCullough and that staff over there. It feels like there's going to be a lot more exciting times for that program coming forward. But when you look at this game and some of the stats here, man, Bemidji's a really good football team. They certainly are. They had 2 takeaways through the air from Kenny Hertzner, who's been insane for UTPB. They get it done through the air quite a bit. Their offense obviously wasn't massive, making crazy plays, but you have, let's see, 7 pass breakups through the air, a ton of different quarterback hits, 2 sacks, a lot of TFLs, a lot of guys making plays all over the field from Bemidji State. Their defense certainly stepped up. UTPB did not have a receiver over 38 yards on the day, and their leading rusher was their quarterback. So stopping the run out of the backfield was big time for the Beavers, and they're poised certainly to have a big-time matchup against a team who also had a big-time upset. Central Washington, they go into Gunnison, Colorado, and play Western Colorado, a team that had a lot of hype around them. Their only loss in the year was the #1 Mines team, and we didn't really know how this was going to fare. This game ends up coming down to literally the final minute. And if I pull up, I'll have to pull up the clip here to find it. If you follow us on Twitter, you already saw this one. But this game, we ended up not having it be decided in regulation. This goes into overtime over there in Colorado, and this is ultimately the play that would seal the deal for the Wildcats. The drop back in overtime. Bam! With the defensive holding or pass interference, I forget which one it was. This man goes up and makes the play of the game, which, by the way, this is coming off Western Colorado, and they got the ball first in overtime. They hit a field goal, so they do apply a little bit of pressure to this Wildcat offense. Man, what a play. Like, that was awesome to watch there, and I'm blanking on the guys' names here, but there you are. Kennedy McGill, the quarterback, connecting with Morrison on the reception. The 30-yard touchdown seals the deal for C-Dub, and what a game, man. What a final play. What a game. That Central Washington team has surprised a lot of people after they got kind of handedly beat in the Lone Star Conference Championship to a really solid UTPB team. Very interesting stuff there, but an absolutely wild finish, and they certainly earned that win. I'm going to try and find here the graphic they posted to Instagram, by the way, was, oh my God, it was hilarious. I'm pulling it up here right now so you guys can experience this as well. We put it on our Instagram story because I thought it was awesome. Here we have it. This was the post game for the Wildcats. This W, I'm assuming, is something from Western Colorado here, and you'll see they did a little bit of a minor tweakage to the W in the mountain. That's badass. Shout out the content team, the graphic designer over there for the Wildcats. That's sick. I would think going into this, they had to have that idea. That's freaking awesome. But shout out Central Washington, man. Like, what a crazy game for them. They keep their playoff hopes alive. Bemidji State will host the second round matchup between those two. So we'll see what ends up going down there in Super Region 4. Finally, our last game, D2-wise, to talk about a little bit. Augustana, they showed the first time against Mankato was no fluke, right? They come out and honestly, they dominated this game. This game was 44-10 at one point. Obviously, Augustana, Minnesota State, Mankato on the road, and it really sucks for a team like Duluth that just beat Mankato and is watching this game from their couch thinking, man, we could have given them such a better game, which I'm sure that was the thought going through their head. This is a very quality Mankato team, though. I don't want to put anything past that. This Augustana team, the outright NSIC champions, man, they came out and showed out against Mankato, had a lot of really good things to be proud of. Casey Bauman, through the air was solid, but on the ground was also getting a lot of stuff done. And the defense for Augustana, this is it, man. 5 interceptions for that Augie defense in what was probably their best performance of the year. And it was 5 different dudes. Jake Polson, Jake Zeppelin, Hayden Wallace, you got Logan Leonard, and Peyton Buckley. 5 of them have interceptions, man. Not one dude getting it done. It's that whole defensive secondary for the Vikings just getting shit taken care of and standing on business, if you will, over there. The Augies, man, they are rolling right now. But with that being said, as much as I would like to give them their flowers, I do not want to be the team to catch Colorado Mines off a bye week. With that being said, you know, if there's a team that's going to give them a great shot, it might be Augustana. I certainly wouldn't count them out of that matchup, but like I said, I would not want to be that squad. Catching them off a bye week is certainly dangerous. But that's kind of it, man. Holy cow, I feel like I haven't stopped talking for forever. You're probably sick of hearing my voice here. Let's take one last look at the bracket before we transition over to the Division III side of things with Jimmy Martin. And this is your last look kind of at the Sweet 16 and how it shakes out. We will probably have a live game day show here on Saturday. Stay tuned to the socials to hear about that. But this D2 side of things, man, I think this round 2 is going to get very interesting. We only saw a couple upsets in round 1. You can bet your ass there's going to be a lot more of those in round 2. So thanks for sticking around with me, listening to all the things I have to say about Division 2. You'll hear less of me yap, in the next couple segments. Let's go over to Jimmy Martin and the Division 3 side of things. Now to move over to the Division 3 side of things, the man himself, Jimmy Martin's back. What's up, dude?
How we doing, everybody? How we doing?
Excited to be back here, dude. We've got quite the mix-up on the D3 side of things. Here's the bracket, at least the Sweet 16, if you will, the teams remaining. And you and I talked about it a little bit. The game picks maybe for the first round, not the craziest, most difficult things to predict. With that being said, did have some maybe 2 or 3 games that kind of came really down to the wire. Had a couple, I guess, technical upsets there. But I think, would you agree with me? Most things shook out how we expected in round 1.
Yeah. You go back and look at our show from last week. We picked 13 out of 16 correctly. You know, I did say on the show it's going to be a lot of chalk.
Yeah,
and that kind of followed the course this week. A lot of nothing really shocked us this week. You know, a lot of thrilling games. Cortland Endicott was one of those games we were going to talk about. Obviously, you know, we kind of talked about how Cortland is kind of like ending the Cinderella seasons, if you will. Like Endicott kind of came out of nowhere this year, like kind of a feel good story. You know, and they won that one 23-17, kind of a barn burner, you know, as we saw there.
And they never trailed in that game. That's what we talked about with Zach earlier, man. Even though, you know, that game was so competitive, they literally never were on the back end of that game, which is weird in a contest like that on the road too. So that's a huge win for them.
Yeah, no, certainly a huge one.
Yeah, I mean, look around the rest of the bracket. Most of the top seeds obviously took care of business. Lacrosse and Mount Union just freaking handled, as well as like teams like North Central, like who is probably pissed off right now about their seeding. But we get into round 2, we're gonna have some good ones. But let's not worry about round 2 yet. Let's talk about some of those round 1 matchups. Who do you want to start with?
I think a pretty big one was Aurora and Co. 20-7. Obviously, Aurora's defense is what really stood out to me this week, and I think in order for them to beat Lacrosse this week, they're gonna have to have that same fire on the defensive side of the ball. Being that Lacrosse is a really, really efficient offense. I think obviously a huge part of that is Kaiser Helterbrand, who went 13 of 14 last week for 175 yards and 4 touchdowns. So Aurora is definitely going to have to bring that defense next week in their matchup with Wisconsin Lacrosse. But no, I think this was a game where we kind of talked about last week was going to be kind of a close game, but like we kind of knew Aurora was probably going to like take this one. And obviously Co put up a pretty good fight, but I mean, holding Aurora to 20 points is pretty impressive. You know, Aurora's been running up the scoreboard all year. So maybe a little bit surprising that it was pretty low scoring, but about to be expected, about a 13-point margin of victory for Aurora in that one. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'd be interested, you know, because obviously you don't know unless you're really there about how this game really felt. You know, kind of get that like game sense of kind of the way things were going on. But like you kind of talked about, this Aurora team feels like their MO for the longest time has been, hey, we're going to light up the scoreboard and just outshoot you in one of those like classic shootout type contests. Good to see for them, the Spartans, I do believe, correct?
Yep.
Good to see for them that they can win a game like this, right? A game that is a little more back and forth maybe, and that they're going to face some adversity offensively, that they can rebound and win games like that. Co heading into this one, I mean, a 9-1 squad that had a lot of great success within their conference. Their only loss coming to a Wartburg team they lost to by 6 points. And when you look at this Co defense, you know, they have not let more than... Outside of the Wheaton game, they hadn't let up more than 20 points to an opponent, and they let up 27 to Wheaton, who's one of the top seeds in the tournament this year. This co-defense is very impressive. I think there was a lot of things being said earlier in the week about how, I think the one quote was like how co is more battle-tested. I'm not sure who that came from, but the Aurora people, man, they found that one. They were using it as a little bit of fuel, and that circulated back after the win. But with that being said, against this co-college defense, dude, Aurora has a lot to be really excited about with this offense, and kind of like you alluded to, going into Lacrosse this weekend, like they're going to need all of that and maybe a little bit more, huh?
Yeah, and you know, we kind of saw on the Hansen ratings, so this week, lacrosse is -4.5 against Aurora,
which is surprisingly
over-under,
low, I will say.
Yeah, and that over/under is sitting at 62.5. Given that
Holy
Aurora,
shit.
so Aurora only gave up 7 points last week.
Yeah.
And they're still expecting lacrosse to score more than 30 points. So, and
That's
this guy's pretty scary accurate. Like, he
Yeah.
has some really good spreads. And if you look at it, they're pretty week to week. He nails them on the head pretty well. So
Yeah, I mean, because obviously he's not sitting there and he's not like, someone at a desk saying, I think they'll win by this much, right? He's got all these metrics, analytics, and all these things that just calculate and spit this stuff out. But like you said, when you look at football and that kind of through that lens analytically, it's scary sometimes how accurate it can be. But then you have the flip side where like sometimes it doesn't mean anything, right? Going into a game like that.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of shifting gears here a little bit, kind of a game I wanted to talk about due to I believe the best performance of the week. Wheaton getting the W 41-34 last week. Giovanni Weeks, who we spoke about a little bit last week, ran for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns.
That is massive.
Playoff Geo. Maybe they could start running
I like that. I like that.
Well, hey, dude, if this kid, man, oh man, like obviously their only loss this year was to North Central. So this Wheaton team is pretty darn good. And I think they could definitely maybe challenge Whitewater a little bit more than people think this week. It's a 16-point spread against the Warhawks.
Man.
That's a big spread to cover for Whitewater. And obviously Whitewater is a hell of a team. Another kind of thing I thought was interesting, the over-under sitting at 65.5.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight this play, and we had put it out on our Twitter, but the interception here, originally thought it was a freshman. I think they had a jersey mix-up over there at Wheaton, but Gage Autry, I do believe, is the correct name, so we got it wrong in the tweet because the announcer, I think, was fooled as well. But he comes up with this pick in the fourth quarter. MSJ's driving down the field, right? And you're at a one-score game. They're down by 7 with 6 minutes left in the fourth. And it felt like Wheaton had just gone down and scored before this. I was actually tuning into this one. And it felt like at this time, they're in the red zone. They've been converting all day. Like, what's going to stop them from getting another touchdown? Right there, batted ball up in the air. That interception, to me, felt like kind of sealed the deal for this Wheaton offense / defense, I guess you can say. So that was a huge play. Wanted to highlight that one for sure.
Yeah, anytime you can generate a big play, like a turnover like that, it can be a huge momentum shift for a team, and we saw that this week. So
yeah, absolutely. And then, as we just go through this, their next round matchup, Whitworth, who actually had a really competitive game this last week, but one that I don't think we've talked about really a whole lot. I mean, is that going to be as expected for you in the round 2, you think? Not without doing any picks or anything, just kind of, giving the lay of the land.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, man. It's hard to say. I don't know, man. But
Whitworth's undefeated this year. Now, the NWC, not a lot of potentially great football in there. They do have the one quality win at Linfield, which is probably, I would say, their statement win on the year, getting a win on the road over there. And then their win over Chapman in the first round of the playoffs definitely is up there as well. But their strength of schedule, I think, has probably been the reason they've been left out of the conversation. But when you pick up your last 2 wins, actually, Linfield was their season closer in the last game of the conference play as well. You win at Linfield and you win against Chapman in the first round. And this Wartburg team is very talented, but at least Whitworth's got some good momentum with them heading into that one.
Yeah. I got to go with Wartburg in this one, man. I know we weren't really supposed to do picks, but I mean, Wartburg is a really, really, really good football team. That defense is stellar, and I think Whitworth's going to have a hard time scoring points this week, personally. I mean, again, I could be wrong. I missed 3 picks last week out of the 16, so I'm not perfect. I don't have
It's not perfect. No crystal ball.
Yeah, crystal ball. Yeah. Thanks, Kobe. But yeah, man, I just believe in this Wartburg team a lot. That defense is just it's a stone wall, if you will.
That front seven has made a lot of noise this year. They've gotten a lot of accolades, a lot of recognition from some of the other press outlets and news outlets, those kind of things. But where do you want to go next?
I was going to kind of highlight the Johns Hopkins game, winning 62-20. That was a statement win in the first round for Johns Hopkins, and that was due to Spencer Ugla with 229 yards of offense. Yeah, ran for 216 and had 13 receiving yards as well, but didn't get in the end zone. Come on, Spencer, dude. You gotta come on, dude. Get in the end zone. But no, 200+ yards of offense, especially on the ground. Running for 200+ yards in a playoff game. That's got to be one of the best performances in that school's history. Then, obviously they have Union this week, who's tough. I did not pick Union to win last week, and they proved me wrong. So
okay, that was one of the 3 blemishes on the record, huh?
That was one of those 3 where I underestimated Union last week. They won 24-16 over Del Val. Pretty good win for them. But this Johns Hopkins team is tough, man. They're looking to get into a Final Four situation. If they win this week and then they win next week, they're right there, ready to play. Most likely Mountain Union in that bracket game. But
and I think that's the expectation for them, right? Like as being a top seed in the region, right? You knew that first round was going to shake out that way. Now is when it really starts to get interesting. And you talked about it a little bit, dude. They dominated on the ground, 439 rushing yards. They didn't even let up 100 defensively. That to me feels like a very big indication of kind of what was going on over there. 783 yards of total offense for the Jays, dude. Hello. We've seen that offense. Has been pretty solid all year. I don't think we've seen a whole lot of performances like that from them so far. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up against maybe a little bit more quality opponents here these next couple phases of the playoffs.
Yep.
8 for 12 on third down, 2 for 2 on fourth.
8 for 12 on third down is something else, man. That's quite a stat right there.
Yeah, that's insane. 10 for 14 on third and fourth combined. Wow.
Yeah, and then obviously the winner of the Johns Hopkins game in Union will play the winner of the Ithaca-Randolph-Macon game. I think that's this Ithaca-Randolph game, I think, is going to be like the best game of the week. It'll be like the closest game, most evenly matched game.
I can see that.
Yeah. What's interesting is Randolph-Macon is an 8.5-point favorite over Ithaca.
8.5 using the Hanson?
Yeah. Which is a bigger spread than the La Crosse and Aurora game, which I thought was kind of
that's actually insane.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming, having a bigger spread than the La Crosse Aurora game. But no, that's definitely the game I'm gonna have my eye on. I'm gonna stamp that as the pre-game of the week, like before the season starts. Because we always have our games of the week before, and then obviously after we pick the actual game of the week. But yeah,
how about that one, the Texas Showdown? And we haven't talked about a little bit too much yet. That Trinity Hardin Simmons game. I was very curious to see how that shook out. I do believe Trinity was probably the favorite in that one. I don't know what the technical spread was. I do believe they were probably the favorite, obviously, hosting that one. But this Hardin Simmons team, we've talked about, their window, and it felt like this was very much their year. Talking with Gale England just a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, their season comes to an end against, let's be honest, was a very quality Trinity team that might be able to give North Central a little bit of a match this weekend.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Talk about the Hardin Simmons games first, though, brother.
No, but Hardin Simmons, man, they battled. I mean, they obviously they lost by 14 points, but I mean, they kept it close, 20-6. Defense played well. Obviously when you score 6 points, you're not going to put yourself in position to win too often. Yeah, unfortunately, but still tipped the cap, had a great year, won the conference, but that's another one of those games where I picked Hardin Simmons to win that one. So, Trinity proved me wrong. So tip the cap over to them. The Battle of Texas, so they claim Texas, I guess. I guess they got it this year. I guess they got it this year. Different conferences, but same state. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good point. And you look at some of the stat breakdowns from this one, and I think the biggest thing for me is that Hardin Simmons couldn't get anything going on the ground, dude. They finished with negative yardage rushing wise, and yeah, part of that is because of like some sacks and other things.
Yeah.
That happened, obviously, the way that is counted up, which if we can see, it doesn't say on here. I don't believe that I can't see that. But, something for me, that Hardin Simmons backfield, they've had like 2 or 3 guys, like a rotating stable in there, and all of them have kind of been really productive down there for the Cowboys. That seemed to definitely show up in the scouting report for Trinity. That front seven got after him and made a big impact there. And I think when you break that down, I don't think their passing game is quite efficient enough to claw their way back into a game like that. I don't think it's the way that the team is structured over there at Hardin Simmons. So kudos to Trinity for maybe identifying that and knocking that out early. They didn't even have a first down rushing the ball. Hardin Simmons did not on the game.
I mean, you got to tip the cap to the coaching staff on that scheme too.
That's
also,
tough.
I mean, that's good football right there by Trinity.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I guess on the other side of that, we can briefly mention North Central, who had Bellhaven in that first round draw. That was ugly, huh?
65 zip.
God, dude, that's playoffs.
That's brutal, dude.
That hurts a little bit.
If we're going to the Lennon counter, if you will, now he threw 3 touchdowns, but he had 5 incompletions.
The Lennon counter.
So now he's lost a little bit of leverage in that.
Okay.
In that department. So I mean,
he said 3 tuds to 5 incompletions.
Yeah, he's got to be more efficient.
So a shitty day at the office if you're Luke Lennon.
Horrible. Yeah.
That's insane.
65-point victory and 3 touchdowns. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not
shitty
enough.
day.
Not enough.
No, but that, I mean, it just shows, like, we joke, but that shows how high the ceiling and the expectations are over there. I think is ridiculous from them. Also, they're pissed off because they're not even the top seed in their region, which is going to be very interesting down the stretch here. Huh?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that spread will be for that.
Yep.
That if Lacrosse wins that game, I should say. But I mean, even if they play Aurora, like that spread will be a little bit bigger if it's Aurora. But I mean, I think it'll still be double digits. Remarkably enough, I really do. I think the Hanson ratings have a lot of respect for the WIAC, but North Central is far and beyond, in Logan Hanson's opinion, the best team in Division III. I think he has them at like a 49% chance to win the whole tournament outright already.
Really?
So yeah, there's like a calculator that has like to win this week, next week, round of 4, and then round of 2, obviously, which is the championship. It has like percentages for each team to win that. They're only giving Lacrosse and Whitewater 1% each, respectively, to win the national championship, which I think is pretty good value, in my opinion. But but North Central being the heavy favorite, and deservingly so. I mean, they seem to be a machine, and the fact they're not a 1 seed, given that they've won 26 games in a row now, is it's pretty wild to me.
I would agree with you there, 100%. And just like you talked about, the way that we've held them in the regard all year, and they've earned it too, right? I think is kind of a big deal about it. But let's go over and talk a little bit about this this Grove City team. We talked about Cortland, which is their matchup they pulled in the second round, which they will have to go on the road for, which is a kind of a big deal because you look at Grove City's record versus Cortland. Grove City is currently undefeated on the year versus a Cortland team who lost to Susquehanna in a non-conference matchup towards the beginning of the season. That same squad that the Wolverines just took down, their first win in playoff history. We've got the game-winning play here that you saw if you follow us on the socials here. A little pitch and catch to the back of the end zone. Not only that, I mean, that's like a you got mossed type of candidate right there. Absolutely nuts grab. There was, when it's all said and done, 4 seconds left, you could see the two emotions on either sideline. What a day to be a Wolverine over there at Grove City, man. Yeah,
I mean, and that's why you play football right there. Making the game-winning catch, being that it was a miraculous catch as well. You know, anyone can just catch the ball if you're wide open, but that was like ridiculous. 21-20 victory, just an absolute nail biter, you know, and they needed to score a touchdown there too.
Yes.
So that makes it even more important, which was that's why you play right there, man.
Yeah. The Riverhawks, they try a little lateral right here, and just to try and keep the playoff hopes alive, and it just falls short at their place. So GCC gets to be the road warriors. This, again, I put them in a very similar kind of space, if you will, as Hardin Simmons, because it feels like this is the year for them. And not to say that the next couple of years could not be great for both those respective squads, but when you talk about the windows in your respective conferences, UMHB is going to be back. They're going to rebound. It's going to be a great game again in 2024. Same with them. Carnegie Mellon is going to be very much back in that conference as far as the President's Athletic Conference is concerned. So if you're Grove City, obviously, this could be a stupid thing to say, Kobe, but you want to capitalize right now. And that's, I think Zach brought up a great point earlier, the quarterback from Cortland. He said, this is a very inexperienced team, but with that being said, they're going to be incredibly hungry because they have a taste of what winning in the playoffs looks like. And who are we to deny them from getting another one? So it's going to be a fun matchup, I think, this weekend. I'm excited to check that one out.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Cortland is a huge favorite in that game, 15-point favorites.
Which I don't, it's not very surprising to me. I would take Grove City on the spread in that. If I were in some case a betting man, I would take Grove City on the spread on that one.
Yeah, right. And then another spread I thought was kind of interesting. Alma getting kind of a lot of respect, honestly,
against Mount Union.
At least. Mount Union is only this is just a respect to Mount Union as well. Only 19-point favorites.
Okay.
Against Alma. I mean, playing in the conference like that. I mean, Alma's solid team, but I mean, Mount Union is to put that into perspective. North Central's a 25-point favorite against Trinity.
Yeah, that's insane.
And Trinity is the number what? They were number 6. And Alma was ranked outside of the top 20, I want to say. So, and then being that Mount Union was number 2, and they're only, I don't know. That's kind of wild to me. I would have thought it would have been a little bit bigger of a spread, but hey, anything can happen any given Saturday also. So
absolutely. And I think You kind of touched on it, but it comes down to a little bit of the conference play, right? And strength of schedule. And Mount Union doesn't really boast anything too wild either. When you look at Alma, kind of their statement wins, outside of a pretty commanding win over DePaul in the first round, which I think was an impressive one. We talked about DePaul a lot last week. This is a team that had a lot of momentum. They just won a huge rivalry game against Wabash. And looking at Alma's schedule, though, I think their biggest statement win of the year, at least inside of conference play, was Hope College, who did finish with a decent record. But that game was huge on the road at Hope, who was receiving votes for the top 25 poll at the time. And then you go Albion College, a big win for them, and Adrian, some of those conference games. But outside of Hope, you don't have a ranked opponent on the schedule the entire year. And I think that maybe hurts you, but at the same time, they're undefeated, and they still have to suit it up, just like Mount Union does on Saturday. And I'm with you. I think this Mount Union team is very much held in that same caliber as the North Central, the Cardinals over there. We'll see. We'll see how Alma fares. On the road, the Scots, you can guarantee the kilts will be out no matter what the weather is over there.
Yeah.
Which is going to be, it's crazy, by the way. That's fucking ridiculous, the fact that they do that. And if you remember, we had Coach Couch on the show a while back, and we talked about, traditionally, you're wearing nothing under that son of a bitch. Like, under a kilt, wild. There's no, typically, there's no way you're letting it hang out when it's, I don't know what the temperature is going to be like over there in Ohio, but damn.
Yeah, that's, oof. I don't know about that, man. I don't know if I can go commando if it's that cold.
I don't know.
That's just me though. I'm not a Scot.
No. You just not cut like that, man.
No, I guess not.
Shoot. But I think that's the most of it, dude. Definitely a point I did want to touch on was that the Bethel season coming to an end. I don't think we actually talked about that. Whitewater, right? That might be the one that we were missing. Bethel, with their head coach retiring after this year, they just hauled in a ton of accolades as far as conference and region goes, put together a really great season. Shout out to the Royals, but they did run into the buzzsaw that was Wisconsin Whitewater, and it's feeling very likely that we'll get a Wartburg Whitewater regional final down there.
Yeah, and I think I did see this one coming on the show last week. You were saying that Bethel and Whitewater is going to be a great matchup, and said Kobe, not so fast. I think Whitewater is a little too good.
The Lee Corso on me. He loves that. He loves that line.
Yeah.
Not so fast.
42-14.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey.
That's Whitewater's defense for you, though. I mean,
it is.
Bethel to 14.
Which I don't think has been talked about enough. They've also been running the ball at a very good clip, which, obviously keeps the ball away from the opposing team's offense. That's huge. So, we'll see, man.
Their whole thing is on the rock. So
yeah. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up, and, look for us maybe to have a little game day action here. We're figuring some things out on Saturday. Maybe see if we can't get something put together Saturday morning. Little live action. We'll see what's going on though. We'll see what's going on.
Yeah, we got to get like mascot heads to like when we make picks to like put on like Lee Court. So we got to get the crowd involved. We got to get rowdy.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. Obviously Thanksgiving break. Not a lot of people around. So that'll be interesting though. Like this weekend, obviously being break for all these college students. Like, what are these environments? These games going to suffer at all? Like I'm not sure.
I don't know. Pretty legit, man. I think people are going to come back and watch that game.
Jimmy, you can't give that out, bro. I got to mute that.
Oh, sorry.
You're giving out too much info.
Sorry. My bad.
Hey, yeah, but now it's going to be muted. Now they don't know. Now they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
All right, bro. I appreciate you. Great analysis. I think we covered just about all the big talking points. I'm excited to see what this weekend has in store for us, dude.
Yeah, sweet, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. See you, Jim. Let's kick it on the NAIA side of things. Finish it off here. Not as much football played this week, Matt, huh?
Yeah. We had the little play-in phase of the playoffs, so obviously there are only 4 games to go over, and honestly, a couple of these there wasn't really close. So a little boring to talk about, but there was still some good football played, and ultimately, like, these are still some incredible teams. So I guess we'll kind of start out from the widest disparity in score. St. Thomas absolutely rolled over Reinhardt 55-7. St. Thomas absolutely just was living in Reinhardt's backfield. It was absolutely absurd. And offensively, Rontavious Farmer, the running back, had almost 200 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. It was just an absolute monster mowing down a very good Reinhardt defense. Like, it was just wasn't even close.
Yeah, no, that was Especially when you talk about playoff football too. You only have 4 games, and for one of them to be in this fashion, you look at the box score, and it is just row after row after row after row. St. Thomas just blowing up the scoreboard. That's tough. Was that expected at all from this Reinhardt squad that we've seen play in some really competitive games throughout the year? Was that expected, or is this a little more of a surprise?
This is a bit more of a surprise. I knew
thought
St.
so.
Thomas was going to be really, really good, and
Okay.
like no discredit to them, but nobody expected them to roll like they have been rolling this season. Like that tough, like out of conference they had at the beginning of the season obviously worked out for them well because they are on fire. And Reinhardt too, I think maybe a little weaker than they have been in years past when they get to the playoff. But still like a very good defense, a very well coached team, very talented team. Was definitely surprised to see how kind of how much of a blowout it was, truthfully.
Yeah, and it sucks too because we talk about how selective, even though you expand the field, right? Obviously, the field itself is still very selective. And I think the best example I used earlier was like, Minnesota Duluth watching Mankato get their butt kicked in the first round, where like you just beat them the week before, and now you're sitting watching it on your couch. Like that has to hurt. So I know there's definitely a few teams out there that see a beatdown like this and have to be thinking to themselves like, we could have given them a better match. Hey, we will literally never know, because they did have it. It felt like some pretty quality wins. That the Bluefield game they won just a week prior was super dominant. The wins against Pikeville and Double OT and Georgetown was probably maybe one of their biggest wins on the year back in week 4 of the season. So for them to have those statement wins on their record and be in a lot of those games, even on the road, to me at least was surprising. But
yeah, absolutely. But it just goes to show how scary St. Thomas is right now.
Yeah.
I would not want to get in their way right now. That's for sure.
For sure. How about little GPAC shout out? Dort getting the job done, man, in a very big way too, huh?
Yeah, the Iowa Bowl.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, because they both run the ball and wear black and yellow.
That's good.
Ended in favor of the actual team from Iowa, Dort.
Yes.
Obviously, Ottawa, we talked about kind of in the playoff preview, the spot that they were in being a 6-5 team. People didn't think much of this Ottawa squad. I will give them credit where credit is due. They battled well, and like I think the score doesn't show. The game was a little closer than the score leads to believe, but ultimately, like Dort just out physical Ottawa. Like that's what it comes down to. And obviously, they hung in there well, but this is a Dort team that just absolutely will roll you over. And their running back had 4 touchdowns, like 110 rushing yards, which is a really weird stat line, but still very dominant. It was just all Dort all day. And this is a team since the Morningside game that has been legit, and they continue to be.
Yeah, and I'm watching these clips too and watching the rushing attack, and it's like, yeah, the offensive line is getting great push off the line of scrimmage. Obviously, when you run the ball like that, that's a huge part of it. But how about the dudes on the outside as well? And here's I get the celebration on here too. But how about the dudes on the outside? I feel like certainly deserve some credit too from that defender squad. I feel like they contribute a lot to that rushing attack for Dort, and certainly don't want to let that go unnoticed. And you talk about a team like this in the GPAC. This is probably the best example of a team that's going to benefit from this expanded field, because now they have all the opportunity in the window in the world to go in and make some real noise on the old playoff kind of picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a team that I don't think was in question after they beat Morningside. Wouldn't have been in that spot. But this is definitely the best that we've seen, and certainly that I've seen, even on the sideline watching them desperately as an offensive player, not able to do anything about what they were doing. But yeah, this is a really good Dort team.
Absolutely, dude. We talked about that Baker game a little bit before we got on, and they kind of ran away with that one, huh? Okay, that pretty convincing. 56-28 over a Louisiana Christian squad that I think you've been pretty high on.
Yeah, I've been really high on this Louisiana Christian squad, and honestly, the scoreboard I think here also doesn't do the game justice more so than the last one. The score was 35-28 at the start of the fourth quarter. You turn the ball over 2 or 3 times
at the start of the fourth, huh?
Yeah,
one score game.
One score game at the start of the fourth. And Louisiana Christian was fighting back, like they were very much in the game. And then I have sung the praises of, I believe, Palermo. Yeah. He's been great this year, but just some of those interceptions, they're going to kill you. And they obviously did. Bakersfield blown the water. It was over.
Yeah, and Louisiana Christian, they opened up the first 2 scores of the game, too. So it wasn't like they were having to battle back into this one. They had a little bit of an early advantage. And that's on the road, too, to open up with 2 scores and to get points on the board on the first couple of your possessions, I feel like is usually a really good indicator of a team that's going to see success down the stretch. Just the wheels fell off in the fourth quarter, huh?
Absolutely. But I think, too, you have to give Baker so much credit here.
Give them their flowers for sure.
Yeah, this is a squad that has battled all season long and has been honestly really impressive. Just no quit, just keep rolling the way that they're rolling right now. Like they very much could make noise even as one of the lower seeds in the playoff. So
I love it, dude. Finally, we get to talk about a little bit of an upset. I would assume it's definitely an upset, right on the road or what?
Yeah. I'd say so. I think too, Dickinson State doesn't get a lot of credit. They usually don't win these games, but for the first time since 2018, they win the first round matchup. So good for them. Obviously,
at Montana Tech, a team that has showed a lot of people up over there in the Frontier, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a good sign for this Dickinson State squad. Their defense is absolutely incredible this year. Just to slow down Montana Tech the way that they did. I think both teams, this is obviously a close game. Both teams played very well, but just seeing that next gear that Dickinson State can kick it into is nice to see, and we haven't seen in years past.
Yeah, dude, this, again, watching the clips here, like the venue absolutely packed over there at Montana Tech. This obviously means a lot to that fan base and that community, but at the end of the day, just not enough time. Not enough time for them to come back in this one. And I think you kind of touched on it. The takeaways, like any game, the takeaways were huge in this one against the Dickinson State team that was not afraid to take shots down the field. You see it there. They blow it open offensively. And to me, it just screams like confidence, right? This is a very confident team that we're seeing right now. And this time of the year, that can be pretty dangerous.
It can be. And I think the North Star, for as much crap as that conference gets, just because, schools dropping out and strength of the actual teams that are in there, they've been pretty solid this year. And I think like Dickinson State has a legitimate shot to make some noise and put some respect to a conference that's probably not going to survive realignment, I guess, for the NAIA.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be curious. There's a whole lot that plays into it, but basically the North Star, because Presentation College dropped, football, Iowa Wesleyan went under, just a lot of teams that could not fund, and then Waldorf joined the GPAC. They're going to be in the GPAC next year. So,
okay, that I actually did not know.
Yeah, that was a recent development because Jamestown is going to be moving up to D2.
I did see that. I saw the Jamestown news for sure.
Yeah, so that was a corresponding move for the GPAC. But yeah, the North Star they don't get an automatic bid, so they're going to have to figure out the situation elsewhere. As of right now, it looks like a couple teams or all of them are going to join the Frontier or look at getting the GPAC, stuff like that. So
where's Jamestown going conference-wise? Do we know that?
They, I believe, are going to the North Star or NSIC.
NSIC?
Yeah.
That sounds right. No, that sounds right, actually. Yeah.
Is it the North Star?
Northern Sun.
Northern Sun, that's right.
Yeah.
I always get it confused with
I don't blame you at all. Yeah. But no, that's a fun move, actually. I forgot that's where they were going. Okay, cool. Very cool. Talk about some of these second round matchups we got. Obviously going to have thankfully, a lot more football to be played, at least on the NAIA side of things, that's backwards as hell, by the way, playoff-wise, to have more football played in week 2.
Yeah, obviously with the play-in format that they're going with, expanding from 16 to 20, we now go from 4 games round 1 to 8 games in round 2. But obviously there's still some great matchups here, and it's important to note, I don't know D2, D3, how this really works in terms of seeding. These schools a lot of the time, in kind of the corners of the country, cannot afford to be making huge trips and travel. So the seeding's not even, like it's not a traditional 1 plays 16, 2 plays 15, like that sort of thing. But they do the best that they can. They take into consideration distance and competitiveness factors and everything into these decisions. So the seeding's going to be weird. So you just kind of have to bear with that. But
yeah, and technically on the D2 side of things, it's like it's seeded correctly for the most part, but then you see matchups like a Grand Valley and Ferris that play in the first round, and you're like, should that really be a first-round game, or was there something on beforehand that went on to say, hey, let's make travel a bit easier for whatever teams, and we want to have whatever? I think it happens still, even though it might not happen on the back end. I think it happens beforehand at the D2 level at least. But it's a very valid point. Like you said, it ain't cheap to bus, or even, now you're talking about potentially flying out a group of 100 dudes. You got to stay in hotel. You got to feed a bunch of grown boys over there.
Yeah, and you don't have the A&M oil money flying
No,
around at
hell
these
no.
NAIA schools, so there's a lot to consider. So I think they still did a pretty good job with these matchups. It's going to be very obvious, like which teams are regional and which ones are not.
Yeah.
But we do kick things off with the battle for Walmart, Northwestern versus
Hell
Fort,
yeah, I was waiting for
1
it.
versus 16. Coming back, obviously Northwestern won this game pretty handily at the beginning of the year. But Dort gets another shot at it. And this is a Dort team that, like I said, is rolling right now. They can make some noise, but Northwestern, man, that's a tough squad.
Still a cut above.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. But then obviously Grandview playing Dickinson State. This is actually a really interesting matchup. Curious to see how Dickinson State's defense can handle what Grandview does on the offensive side of the ball. They have some very talented guys. But obviously Grandview's defense is so dominant. It's going to be hard to get going if you're Dickinson State. You really got to bring your A game to that one. That's a 2 versus 14 matchup.
Yeah, and if you talk about their defense in this last game, a great way to get into that is obviously disrupting what you can do in the offensive backfield, but also generating the turnovers. So I think for the most part, actually starts with the disruption. So if they can continue and pick up right where they left off, which is much easier said than done, especially against an opponent like Grandview. But if they can continue to break that up offensively and get back there and disrupt defensively and generate some of those turnovers, that's how you find those games to be way too competitive when it comes to the third and fourth quarter. So there's a recipe there. Whether or not they follow the instructions, we'll see.
We'll see in the final product. We got another regional matchup here. 3 Kaiser taking on 13 St. Thomas. This one is going to be crazy with how St. Thomas looks right now. And Kaiser, very battle-tested squad this year. They do a lot of good things on both sides of the ball. I don't know. This one's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, that is gonna be good, dude. That's gonna be solid.
Yeah, it just means more in the sun. That's what they always say.
Okay, so, I actually played against the Kaiser quarterback, Bryce Beasley, I do believe his name is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he was at West Bloomfield when I was playing at Lake Orion, downstate Michigan. Originally went to Bowling Green out of high school and then found his way, which is in the MAC Division I for those who aren't familiar, but then found his way over at Kaiser. Did not realize that until we were covering them earlier this season. And I'm looking at him like, man, like that name sounds familiar. I'm a sophomore playing defensive end at like 175 pounds. Their left tackle, who I think went on to play at Central Michigan, was like 6'6", 315. I remember I get by this dude one time. Finally, put a little speed rush move on him. I'm going to get this man in the backfield. Beasley is like a good 6'4", 6'5". He's tall. Big guy.
Big guy.
Throws it right over me. Was not even phased. It's been a minute. I've seen the dude play. He's a dog. He's certainly led this Kaiser offense to be incredibly potent on the NAIA scene.
Absolutely.
A little personal anecdote for you there, man.
Yeah. No, I love that, dude. Yeah. I love that connection. I love hearing that. But yeah, that's a scary dude you got to deal with, and Kaiser's got some other scary dudes. But, St. Thomas has the benefit right now of also being a scary team. So we'll see for that one. The battle on the beach, I guess you could call it.
Hell yeah.
That should be the name. If it's not, by the way,
that's sick. That'd be sick.
But yeah, we get to see Baker takes on another orange team. Just a bunch of orange flying around on that field. They take on 4th seeded Georgetown. Baker is the 15 seed there. Whew. Georgetown. That's another team you talk about. They look scary right now. Baker, obviously a bit more battle tested with their first round game, but they're gonna have to battle again in this one. Yeah, absolutely, dude. And a team that I've been looking at too, not to move on from this one too quickly, but you talk about next up, this Indiana Wesleyan team that we talked a lot about the success they've had this year. They've had some really big statement wins. You talk about teams like Taylor, like St. Francis, most recently that huge win over Marion. That was our Game of the Week selection just a few weeks back. But
most recently, they have that loss to Concordia to finish out the year. And that's probably the worst timing for this team. You don't want to back into the playoffs like that. The momentum and those kind of things are very real. So for them and this matchup here against Morningside, a team that to their standards has underperformed, do you see this potentially being a really close matchup, even though it is a 6 versus a 10 seed?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think that I don't know, these two teams, like, I'm really excited for this one because basically you get to watch Morningside's offense and how potent it is take on India Wesleyan's defense, who's one of the best in the country. It's a fantastic matchup. I just think like Morningside is not dead until they are literally dead. You know, like this is even at a low point, which being the 10th seed in the playoff, like, okay, that's insane that's your low point. But I'll believe it when I see it. You know, I refuse to be too against this Morningside team. And they, you know, Indiana Wesleyan has to plan against two different quarterbacks, two different styles of play. Lennox Brown is extremely versatile. It's just going to be interesting to see what they do with what's thrown at them.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about too, like the standards are so high for that Mustangs team. Like you have obviously the blemish at Northwestern, the number 1 team in the country on the road in a freaking blizzard that we saw, and then the uncharacteristic upset, the Dordt game that we certainly talked about. The fact that those losses were back to back is definitely worrying, and not the way that they maybe should have and could have responded after that Northwestern game, but. The rest of their resume schedule, if you will, has a lot of really good teams. This is still a team that went into Benedictine in week 1, the number 7 team in the country, and upset them at their place. Has some quality wins over squads like Jamestown. Absolutely handled your boys over at D-Dub, which was a tough one. But like you said, the fact that the 10 seed in the playoff is a low point for them is something else, and certainly feels like their style of play of football could travel very well too.
Oh, absolutely. Always does. Always does.
Good stuff, man. We got, what, 2 other ones here? This Bethel squad's obviously been an exciting one.
Oh, man. I've been talking about NAIA football long enough to have a narrative to push here with Bethel, Tennessee. I feel like these are my guys, you know. I've been hyping them up all season. But, like, the SP plus numbers, man, this is a 4th-ranked offense, the best defense in the entire country.
Okay.
This is a scary Bethel team right now. And obviously, Evangel, who's been quietly on the come up. They have a lot of things going for them. They're undefeated, and guys like Dylan Hester really contributing to a fantastic, you know, balanced approach to the game, and very strong defensively too, especially. So it's this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, and I think Evangel is kind of on the other side. We talk about an IDub versus these guys. They're coming into this with all the momentum in the world. 3 of their last 4 wins coming against some really quality teams in a squad like Friends. Then you go Southwestern and Bethel, and you know they've been able to close out what have been really close games. You know, these last 4 games, their largest margin of victory looks like it was 9 points. So yeah, one part of you could play devil's advocate and say, oh, they were that close to losing every single one of these games. But the other side of me is like, this is a team that knows how to close out close games, and they've done it in a really good fashion. Double overtime, even if it needs to go that far, at home against Bethel, for the KCAC. So, lot of good things. A lot of good things you've said about this Evangel squad.
Yeah, as a Washington Husky fan, I can currently attest to, you know, these close wins, feeling like they're more positive than negative.
Right.
Obviously, I'm a bit biased. You could easily make the case that it's tough to almost lose these games, but if you keep finding ways to win, does it really matter? Does it really matter how it gets done, right? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So this is going to be a great matchup. Evangel has a lot to prove, and Bethel honestly can establish themselves going further into the playoffs. So.
Yeah, man. And then you do have one of those more regional kind of maybe a little bit more regional kind of matchups, if you will.
The Frontier is just the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah,
because I could not believe that we see a rematch of these two teams. I believe the margin of victory they played the first time was like 3 points or something stupid like that. This is an on-fire Montana Western team who's looked really good recently, but College of Idaho has put together a very solid season and has just barely started to slip up. But obviously them, you know, being the way that they are, they'll be fine. So we'll see.
Absolutely. And again, The loss at Southern Oregon is a tough one to stomach for them to close out the year. We talk about momentum. It's obviously very important. They won at home against Montana Western by only 2. It was that close, 37-35 against the Bulldogs there early. That was back in September, which is crazy. To think about that matchup was that far. But, it's a good point, though, because your team in September looks so much different than your team in mid to late November. Like, there are so many things that transpire, good and bad, by the way. Like, you have a lot of growth that happens between your squad, but then you have the obvious injury bug usually will hit a lot of teams, and other things might not go the way that you want. So this could totally be looked at as a very different matchup. There's 2 months of time and pretty good football that separate these 2 games. So, it's hard to beat the team twice, same team twice. We've seen a lot of guys do it, but certainly would be a feat for those the Yotes, I believe, over there, right?
Yeah, the Yotes. It's going to be a fun matchup, and you're absolutely right. That 2 months that it's been since these teams have played, like, a lot changes, and it's hard to beat a team twice, but it doesn't really feel like you're playing the same team when it's been this long.
Yeah.
So it's that's definitely an interesting factor to consider. But this is at Montana Western, so it definitely benefits them this time around.
Yep.
So yeah, it'll be exciting to see. We get a Frontier team guaranteed to go to the quarterfinals, which is always a blast. There's some really good football to be played, so I highly encourage to tune in.
Tap into the viewing, man. Yeah,
have to tap in.
I'm pumped, dude. What's on the cap, by the way? That's a nice little the Rose Bowl.
Oh yeah, big Pac-12 guy. I gotta celebrate because it's the conference is like dying in 2 weeks. So
it's taking his last breaths.
gotta enjoy the joys of the Rose Bowl while I still can.
Yeah, it feels like either you're celebrating it or you're like giving it an extra kick while it's down.
Yeah, I'm trying to celebrate. It's gonna be, honestly, I might shed a tear after that last Pac-12 After Dark game.
Yeah. So. That and a little midweek action, man. There's nothing that makes up my week
better.
My week more than that. That USC team's been kind of all over the place, huh?
Oh, they are
unpredictable.
They're not good. Yeah, I would just say they're not good.
Yeah, I was being benefit of the doubt, but yes. What the hell, man?
Yeah, dude, it's fine. Much better football to watch than USC, anyways. So
yes, no, that's very true. There's much better viewing at all the levels. I should have sent you a video of my setup this weekend. Had like 3 D2 games on the big TV, and then 2 D3 games on my laptop. I got to mix in some NAIA this week. I will.
Absolutely.
I'll get that. Yeah. I'll get that going. That's on me. But sweet, Matt. I appreciate you, brother. As always. Thank you, man.
Yeah, take it easy.